show. With me is Chris. Chris, say hi.
Hi,
Chris, we have a special guest with us. Who is it?
it's Will Conrad.
Hello, Will.
Hello, everyone. How is everybody doing?
We're
So
doing great, and we're
we're
happy
doing
to have you
great.
on.
And where are you from, Will? You're in Brazil, correct?
Yes, I live and I work from Brazil.
And so, is there a big comic book scene in Brazil?
Well, not as big as in the US, obviously. Especially the town that I live, where I live. It's not such a big town, but it's growing, and there are several groups that are very uh, um, in love with comics.
Okay. And so, what got you hooked on comic books?
Well, I can't even pinpoint. I was always drawn to comics since I was very young, and I actually learned how to read and write with comics. So and as I started, obviously, yeah, children's books, uh, and as I started, learning how to read and write, I was also getting very interested on drawing and doing my own stuff. So since I know myself as a person, I always loved comics.
Now, is
Was
there
there a particular comic
yeah,
that
that's what I was
that
about to ask.
yeah? Was there like something you read in
Sorry.
particular? Was
Well, in the beginning there is a comic strip here in Brazil called Monica's Bunch, or in Portuguese is Turma da Mônica, and it's the biggest children's comic book here in Brazil. And that's what I read. And also we had access to Disney's books,
Oh,
and just after that I started getting interested on some uh, the crypt, uh, some horror tales, and I found out the Will Eisner stuff, Joe Kubert stuff, and I started reading all of these things. Uh, Asterix, the European book. So a lot of stuff that I had a friend here in Brazil that he had a big comic book collection. I never had too many comics when I was young because my parents they didn't usually buy comics for us, but I had this friend that he had a lot of stuff. So I always went into his home and grabbed the books and read it. And I borrowed some books and I brought them with me home, and I started trying to emulate those artists. That's how it started for me.
okay.
wow.
Um, And so, when you started sort of drawing yourself, I assume very basic, basic paper, basic pencils, things like that.
Yeah, sure.
And so, when
Colored pencils, all of those, the crayons, all of those kids stuff.
awesome. That's
I used
awesome.
to, I used to, I love drawing on the sidewalks in front of my house. All
Oh,
of the
wow.
kids were playing. Yeah, we were playing in the streets, and we found bricks, and I would, draw on the sidewalks. All of that stuff.
That's amazing. That's great. It's like
Wow.
public art right at the beginning of your career.
I'm sorry.
Public art right at the beginning of your career.
Yeah. Thanks God I was not locked up.
Oh, yeah, sometimes you have to be careful on that. So what was
Yeah.
so do you still have any of your original comics you did when you were a kid, like paper drawings and stuff?
Uh, I, I have very few because my parents they never gave me any incentive, and they actually didn't really want me to to be an artist
Yes.
for a living. I come from a very traditional family, and As I said, I live in a small town. I mean, not such a small town, but it's not, you know, the a big town like for example São Paulo or Rio. And way back then, I was a kid. Um, we didn't have any access to the industry of comics. So my parents, they always thought that if I was working with comics, although I always loved drawing and I was drawing all the time, they said, okay, if he works with art, he's going to starve. So they wanted me to have a regular job, you know. So I never had a lot of incentive. So I had to crawl my way into the market. So uh, it was, it was kind of trying to swim against the tide here for
I
me.
think with a lot of cultures, it's, they want you to be an engineer, doctor, or accountant, you know, and, it's
Yeah,
art,
yeah, and my
yeah.
dad was my dad was an accountant, so that's what he wanted me to do.
And,
So
in a sad way, a lot of people don't see art as a career, and cartoon art, they look down upon that as even, lesser meaning art.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was tough in a way, but it also helped me, because I had to fight and to find my way into the industry. That gave me a lot of strength and understanding about a lot of things. I don't take my career lightly. I know how much I had to fight for a place in the industry, and so I take it very seriously. And I'm very professional about my work and and everything I do. So that
So when
helped
you
that helped me, yeah, that helped me get that way of viewing the industry.
when
so
you
did you
first
ever have
started
any
off,
professional
oh,
training or anything? Did you go to
Sorry.
school for it? Did you go to school for it or anything?
Well, again, I didn't have. We didn't even have a comic book school here. We had art school, but my parents, they didn't want me to go to art school. I actually did 3 years of college in doing administration, an administration course, and I hated every minute of it. So I just I quit this course, and at the time I was starting getting small jobs for um, uh, publicity agencies and uh, um, communication companies, stuff like that here, very small jobs. And then I started, building a portfolio and a portfolio of clients. And I had to make a choice. And I decided I didn't want to go on the direction my parents wanted me to go. And I said, okay, I need to find my own path. And that's what I did. So I gave up the course, the administration course, and I started working. At the time, I most of the stuff that I learned by myself. I got every piece of information I could put my hands on. I found books, comic books that used to study the styles. I got, storytelling books, anatomy books, perspective books, everything that I could find. Uh, I was always studying by myself. And I actually did a course of graphic design, but I was already working in comics at the time. And I just did it because I wanted, to have a degree or something. But mostly everything that I do is self-taught.
now when you first
I
started,
mean, I don't think it's yeah. I think most of the artists from my generation, they are mostly self-taught, I guess.
Now, when you first started, did you approach a publisher or did you self-publish your own work?
No, I found out that a few guys, you know, a few guys here in São Paulo, and we started doing what we call here fanzines, like little stories
Yes.
that we did for
Yes.
ourselves. Yeah, so that's what we did. And we would give it up, take copies, and that's what we did. Um, when I was working in, I had many jobs uh, before I started working with art, and one of those jobs I was working in an insurance company, and they were about to do a manual, an insurance manual, and they needed some illustrations, few illustrations. I don't remember how many, but few illustrations, and they were going to hire somebody to do it. And I was working there, you know, and I said, okay, hey guys, if you want, I can do the illustrations for you. And that was what the first time I did, illustration for any, I mean, a commercial illustration. That was the first time. And I said, okay, I can do it for you guys. I don't, I'm not even going to charge. And they didn't know I could draw. I said, you don't draw? I said, yeah, I do. Actually, I like to draw. And they said, okay, they said, let's do this. I'll do the drawings. If you guys don't like it, you don't even have to pay me. If you don't like, you can hire somebody else. So they said, okay, you can do it. And I did those illustrations and they like it. And when they sent these illustrations to the people that were going to assemble the book, the manual, those guys, they had other clients. And they looked at the illustration and they said, oh, who is this artist? They said, oh, it's a kid there in the company. He did that for us. So, oh, he's really good. He's really good. Could you give me his contact? And they gave this guy my contact, and he called me, and he said, oh, I have some stuff, some work that I have to do here, and I'm going to need illustration. Would you like to do it? I said, of course. And that's how it started, because I
Wow.
started getting work
Wow.
from these guys, this guy, and the work started being published. Other companies and advertisement companies, they would see that, who is this illustrator, who is this guy, and they started contacting me. That's how I started getting illustration work. And uh, but I always wanted to do comics. And one day I found out there was a company here in São Paulo. There was representing the first comic book artists from Brazil. It was like Mike Deodato, Luke Ross, Marcelo Campos, those guys, first generation of Brazilian guys that were
Yes.
working for there. And then when I found out, I said, wow, man, I got the contact. I found out the contact, and I called them and I went there. I took a bus and went there with a portfolio. I didn't even know how to assemble a professional comic book portfolio, but I went there anyway, and I was rejected, you know, right away, because my style was not a comic book, an American comic book style. So I asked, they said, no, we can't sell your style. And I said, oh, it's okay. What's selling? Who is selling? Let me know what are who are the artists that are selling? And they gave me several names that, like Mark Silvestri, Scott Campbell, all of those guys from Image, Stan Lee, sorry, Jim Lee, all of those guys. And so I was in São Paulo. Again, I didn't have a lot of comic books. So I went to a comic store there in São Paulo, and I bought a lot of comic books from all of those guys, and I brought them back home, and I started studying and studying, and I was always doing samples and studying and sending samples. So that's how it started, and until I got my first small job, and from there, it's all story history.
See, looking at your work, I see a huge Alex Raymond influence on your work.
Yeah, Alex Raymond is one of my big references. Him, the early Mark Silvestri stuff, Mark Schultz. I love his line work. Joe Kubert. Who
Yes.
else? Oh yeah, John Buscema. I was in love with his Conan when he was being, especially when he was being inked by Alcala. Um, Barry Smith. I mean, I study a lot of Barry Smith, Will Eisner's storytelling. So I have influence for a lot of guys that I always liked, and of course, Alex Raymond was one of them. Yes.
And your work kind of reminds me of also Lee Weeks. I look at you both of your
Yeah,
work and it's like
he's
amazing
really good,
figures.
man.
Yes, amazing work. Both, you guys remind me and everything. It's like, style, everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think
The
I
one thing
mean
I noticed,
uh yeah, I can't tell much about other artists because I think every artist has his own style, and every artist's style was developed in a different way. In my case, I think it's a amalgamation of many styles that I always loved, and ended up creating my own style, I think.
and I noticed your tools that you're using. You're using some really classic, awesome cartooning tools. Like we
Yes, old
talk in this
school.
podcast a lot about that.
Yeah,
So,
I I I
like,
I I like I like the old stuff. I like to draw, with ink, brush. I like to ink with, a lot of inkers. I worked as an inker. My first big jobs for the American market was as an inker. I worked like 4 years only inking stuff, and I always like to ink with a brush or a quill pen, and nowadays people are using those pens, those
The
mechanic
marker
pens.
pens. Yes.
Yes, and I mean, I use them uh, sometimes, but I still like to draw using the brush, the pencil, the old stuff. Even when I'm working digitally nowadays, I still use the same tools. The tools that I use digitally are the same. The process is exactly the same. The only difference is I don't get so dirty on my hands.
Yes. We just
That's
we
it.
just talked
Yeah.
about that. We just talked about another episode about using whiteout and and whiting out and having pencil marks and
this all
everything.
over.
Oh yeah, I saw
Yeah.
your glove. I saw your glove on your hand. So,
Yeah.
it's to avoid, yep, to avoid all of that stuff. Now,
Yes.
brushes wise, are you using sable brushes or does it matter?
Yes. Sable brush. I like to use the Kolinsky series or the Winsor and Newton series 7.
Oh,
I like to
okay.
use the number 2 and number 1.
Wow, those are
And
expensive.
for
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, you will buy them only one time. You only
that's
need to
it.
buy them
Yes,
once in your life,
that's
because
it.
if you take care of your brush, it will last forever.
We used to
So
both Chris and myself used to work in an art store in Toronto, so we've we've seen all kinds of brushes and all kinds of artists come in there, and sable brushes are not very good quality brushes.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they are expensive, especially here in Brazil. They are really expensive. But as I said, if you take care of your brush, clean it when it finish working, taking care not to screw up uh, the brush, it will last forever actually, and it has a great life too.
Yes. Now, ink
Yeah.
wise, are you picky about what type of inks do you use, like Pelican? You know,
No, I don't. I use Pelican too, but the one that I like more is the Winsor and Newton. Is very good,
Yeah.
and
yes, yes.
the Talons from Rembrandt is
Okay.
really
Oh,
really
okay. I
good
haven't
too.
heard of that one. Okay.
Yeah, Talons. I don't know if you have it in the US. I find it here, but I think so. Talens Rembrandt. It's, oh my God, it's very opaque and very nice to work with.
Now,
I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
unfortunately, in Canada, some of the stuff that's even available in the US, we don't get up here. So I haven't. I know Rembrandt. We used to in the art store. We used to carry some of our paints, but I
Oh
don't remember
yeah,
very. I don't remember
but you
very
can,
inks.
but you can get online. India
Yeah.
Ink,
Yes,
Talens
nowadays
Rembrandt.
you can. Yes.
Yeah, if you try it out, I don't think you're going to use any other ink. It's really, really good. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Now, for digital wise, what's your setup on digital wise? What tablet program do you prefer?
Well, I like to I use the iPad Pro, and on that I like to use the two mainly two softwares. I use the Clip Paint,
Clip Studio Paint?
mostly.
Yes.
Yes, Clip Studio Paint, but mostly to assemble panels and stuff. All of the drawings I like to do in the Procreate because it's the one that I find, it's the closest to the manual stuff for me.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
Yes,
you're first
Procreate.
first digital artist that uses two different creative apps.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yes.
Procreate, yeah, the pencils that I do in Procreate, they are exactly like the pencils that I use. And I create some brushes and I fiddle with some brushes so I can make them, the closest that I can from the actual stuff.
And when you're drawing digitally, do you do it like your sketches in pencil and scan them in and then
Yeah.
ink? Okay.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it depends. No, 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 it
Oh,
depends. It depends. For
Okay.
example, I can do it in pencil when I draw the sketch in pencils in paper. I ink in paper. When
Okay.
I'm drawing digitally, I don't do pencils and then scan them.
okay.
It, it,
Okay.
it's not very efficient. What I do is, let me see if I can find something here that I can show you guys. Um, I draw everything in pencils, and then I go ahead and I ink. Let me see here. Like, I'm going to show you something. Okay, right. See, for example, this is the pencil. This is all digital. So I don't know if you can see. Can you
No,
see?
we could put a link here. Yes, now
That's
we can
it.
see.
Yep.
Yes.
See, so this is digital pencil.
Hmm.
It's very, very close uh, to what I do on the art table. And then I go ahead and ink on that. So the process is basically the same of what I do on paper. See?
And one thing
Okay.
I've noticed with your work is you put a lot of detail in your pencils, even though you're inking it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
some artists like to, draw as they're inking also.
Yeah. Again, it all depends. Sometimes uh, I like to. What I'm always afraid of is getting into that trap that you start relying too much on the digital. What I mean about that
Yes.
is very easy when you do a line and you do it, it doesn't come out as you want. You go there and you undo it. You can't do that on paper. So I try to avoid that. In the way that I do it is if I start inking uh, some of the stuff that I ink on paper and I just do the layouts and I start finishing already in inks, I also do it digitally. But some of the stuff that need a lot of thinking and composing and to detail, I like to do the details, even if it's roughly. I like to do it like in pencil and then inking with the mind of the inker. Uh, I don't know if it makes sense to you. I
No, no,
try
it
to
does. It does. Yes.
I try to take myself away from the way I think as a penciler, and I put myself on the clothes of the inker, as if I was inking somebody else.
Somebody else. Yes.
You
I
know,
guess with that years of experience doing inking, and you can actually sort of separate yourself from that because you used to do it professionally
yeah,
before that.
exactly. Because I'm always afraid that if I started, most of the stuff that are very detailed, if I go straight on inks, the lines is not going to be so perfect, because or I will have
Yes.
to undo a lot of the stuff that I don't want to do that. I want to be as faithful as I can to the original stuff, to the way that I always do on the art table.
Now, question for you. Start to end, let's say penciling to inking, how long does it take you to do an average page or a pinup?
Well, I usually I usually do I measure it weekly. I usually do 5 pages a week.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
completely
That's a
from
lot. Wow.
yeah, completely from layouts to inks.
That's
Wow.
amazing because your work is very detailed. Like
Yeah,
I know people
yeah.
who do that and their work isn't nearly as detailed as yours. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I work a lot. I spend a long time. I spend a lot. For example, right now I'm working. As soon as we finish up here, I'm going to get back to work. I'm probably going to work tomorrow. And I work around, from 13 to 15 hours a day.
That's what I was going to
Wow.
ask. How many hours do you spend on in a day? And yeah, no, that's for the detail and all that stuff. That's amazing for 5 pages a week.
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to the work ethic that you sort of, you weren't handed this, you worked hard for it. So now you love it because, you obviously loved it
Yep.
so much that it must not be the work to
Yes.
you. It's a joy.
Yeah. A lot of people, they have I mean, again, I'm always say everything that I'm talking about here is my personal experience. I can't speak for other artists. Uh, but a lot of people, sometimes they come to me and they have that idea that, working with comics, working with art is, oh, you draw when you have inspiration. Yeah, my inspiration is, the bills that I have to pay every month.
Yes,
and
that's the
and
best inspiration.
yeah, and also, again, the first thing is, say, oh, but how long do you spend drawing every day? And when I say 13 to 15 hours, 7 days a week. On Sunday, I work a little less. I work half of the day usually, but they say, oh man, how do you do it? And I said, well, I have bills to pay, and I do it because I love doing it, and I know
And
how
yes,
hard, yeah, and I know how hard I had to work until I get to the point that I could do that for a living. Um, I mean, when I started out, I worked in a publisher in the morning. I worked in the afternoon. I went to a newspaper. This is when I was working with art. So I went to the publisher in the morning. I went to in a journal, a newspaper in the afternoon, and when I got back at home, I had my clients, the stuff that I had to do for clients, and then I was gonna do, the samples that I was doing for comics. So I know how hard it was for me to start working only with comics and doing what I like, and to get, even if a little, to get some recognition for my work. I know how hard it was, and I know how easy it is, to be forgotten or to stay behind on the industry. So for me,
yes,
that's my
Yeah.
biggest motivation.
and
So
I think
We should
what
probably
you
let you
just
get back to work soon because I
yes,
think
and
we don't want to take too much of your time.
yeah, best
But
sorry,
motivation
sorry.
is best motivation thing is bills, and you have to love what you do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Now, we have to have you on again sometime if you're and talk about more about your art and everything.
Man, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to people. I always, because it's a very solitary work that we do. We stay here, working all the time by ourselves. And when I have the chance to talk to people, it's very good. And again, I am, anytime you guys want to have me and talk to me,
Oh,
it's
love to
always a,
have you. Thank you.
definitely,
Well,
definitely, yeah, for sure.
now
So
before we say goodbye, quick question for you. Who'd win in a
sure.
fight, Hulk or Superman?
Superman, no doubt.
And why is that?
I mean, well, Superman can fly. That's the only thing that I can say. I don't need to say anything else. Uh,
Okay.
I mean, look, it's a question of physics. The Hulk, all they say, oh, the Hulk, the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets, but that's the only thing he has is the strength,
Yes,
and he is destructible. Superman has the heat vision. He can fly. He can, hear everything. And I mean, if they grab each other and start fighting, all Superman has to do is to fly to space and throw Hulk in the direction of the sun. That's it. So
that's
game
it.
over.
That's the best answer.
Yeah,
Thank
if
you.
they got to
Thank you.
if they got to space, Superman can come back. The Hulk no.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, he can.
Yes.
That's they say. Oh, he can clap. He can clap. No, there's no air in space. Come on, guys. It's physics. He can clap as much as he wants. There
Yes.
is no space for him to come back. And if he super is like when you have a spaceship, we had the Artemis 2 now coming back from space. When it leaves the Earth's orbit, it doesn't need to have the rocket on. He goes to the moon just by inertia. So if
Yes.
Superman with his
Okay.
super strength, he throws the Hulk
Falcon.
away
Yes,
into
that's it.
space. Goodbye, goodbye. He's
That's
not
it.
coming back.
That's a
perfect
great
answer.
answer. I think that's a perfect way to end this episode.
I mean, everybody can have their theories, but to me, that's really simple.
Yes.